What happens when every single financial constraint doesn't exist for you? How does it change who you are as a person and how you see yourself? I've talked about this article before, but I love it. It's in the New York Magazine, and it very much focuses on how money is wrapped up with identity and specifically extreme wealth. And I'm a financial expert that talks about how your money and financial situation shapes how you see yourself, how you see other people, how you see the world. It literally puts a lens over your reality. And for the vast majority of us, money is a constraining lens. You know, at a certain point, even if we're making a ton of income, we will bump up against a financial constraint, right? So there are certain things we can't do. There are things we're limited to doing, and that does shape how we interact with the world. But what happens when those constraints are literally gone? And what I loved about this article is it talks about how a lot of these people interviewed that are like 8, 9 figures, like billionaires, talk about how money doesn't affect them. And that in and of itself is the perfect example about how extreme wealth warps your brain, because you are not thinking about it, because you're not constrained about it in the same way that an average person is. And my hot take is that if somebody offered me $1 billion, I probably wouldn't take it, because extreme wealth is unbelievably corrupting for obvious reasons, but it also literally makes you a worse person. There has been studies and documentation about how money makes you less empathetic. And I'm talking about like a lot of money, like billions, multiple millions of dollars. It makes you less empathetic. It makes you less see people as people. And again, it just makes you a worse person, and it shifts your self-perception. It's also extremely isolating. There's also an echo chamber that often comes with extreme wealth, because if you have extreme wealth, you're also in these circles that are typically only people with extreme wealth. And as this article talks about, also extreme wealth leads to insulation from consequences. We as humans need consequences to understand right from wrong. What happens when so many of those consequences go away? There's also a feedback loop where bad behavior just gets rewarded. And finally, which I love that this article talks about, the moral distortion, where somebody in extreme wealth will often believe their behavior is normal because everybody around them, because again, they're in these insular circles, acts the same way. And as I talk about a lot of my content as someone that talks about money psychology and behavioral finance, money amplifies both who you are, and it also creates the conditions that systematically warp who you are. Okay, it's a kind of like a feedback loop. And what happens if you're never truly tested in any way? What is your self-concept, you know? And again, as I said before, most of us have never had the experience of having every single financial constraint removed simultaneously. Like, we don't know what we would be like without any type of financial friction, without any sort of social accountability that comes from needing other people, without ever hearing no. Like, what happens? And as I said before, so much of like self-growth and trying to understand yourself comes through natural consequences, like understanding how you operate under pressure and like what happens when you remove that pressure. Like, what type of person are you?